Hello everybody. In this video I'm going to try 3 different knife forging techniques to see which provides a heel with the smallest radius, and I'll tell you more about that in a minute. Sort of the squarest heel. I'll demonstrate what I'm trying to do in clay first, then we'll forge some actual knives with each of the 3 methods to see which one I think works the best for me. Here's the problem. Forging out the knife blade often results in a heel that isn't really square. We don't really want a perfectly square heel. In most cases, to be honest, it just doesn't look quite right. But if it's too round, then a significant portion of the cutting edge can't be used and it just doesn't look pro. I've got that here in exhibits A, B, and C. You can see that from the plunge line here to about here, it's not going to get sharpened really, or if it is, it's not going to be used. And this area just doesn't look pro anyway. This big round radius, this is what I'm talking about when I say radius. That's huge. So we want to avoid that. This is sort of another example of some results I get sometimes where we have a nice sort of squared off junction here, but look how much distance there is here again between the plunge line and the heel of the blade. None of this is usable. We don't really want that. So this radius is good, but it's part of a huge radius that we really just want to avoid. And this one is looking better. We have a nice angle here between the handle and the back of the ricasso, right? That looks pretty good. But then we can get this bit here again, which even if it's sharpened, and it probably wouldn't be, but even if it is, it wouldn't really be usable. Again, it just doesn't look pro. So this is sort of more what we're after, right? This sort of small radius right in here, something like that. The question is, how do we forge that? We can get there from some of these examples by either grinding the edge back or forging it backwards, and then maybe grinding or forging this way a little bit, and then we reduce the radius there. And that works, but you've decreased the width of your blade, and you might have even pushed a little bit far away from your plunge line, and that won't look right.
And this is my kids' hammer. They're 2 and 3 years old. They play with that thing all day. And for our anvil, the kitchen table. Method 1 is the way I've forged for the past 10 years. Using the corner of a square-faced hammer, we'll bring down the heel and a half-round lump away from our steel bar. You can see where we've pinched off our heel here. Now we'll gather a little steel from midway up the knife and bring it down towards the heel to push it out further if possible before forging the rest of our bevel, moving from the heel forward towards the tip of the knife. So here we see a rounded heel where the radius isn't awful. We'll push the handle back and it'll look a little bit nicer, but I think with one of the other 2 methods we'll still be able to do better. Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. Alright, let's fire up the forge and do this in 1/4 inch flat bar. And as you can see, I've already pointed the blade off camera. Let's pick up with forging our heel. We're going to use again the corner of our square-faced hammer and draw it out. Well, I mean, after one heat, it doesn't look too bad, but let's take our time and see if we can bring the heel down a little more. I'm just using really light, precise blows. Before we start the bevels, we're going to hammer a little bit more of a reverse banana curve in here, because as we start hammering in the bevels, it's going to bend backwards on us. The spine's going to come back, the tip's going to pick up. So let's just preemptively head some of that off. Now I'm gathering material from midway up the blade to try and pull it down towards the heel, pushing it out more and helping square it up. In our clay demo, we did this before hammering out the bevel. Here we're doing it after. I'm taking it to the vise to show you that we have a little cheat code. By forging our plunge line at a forward angle, we've built in some extra wiggle room.
All right, here's what I mean by the advantages of an angled plunge line. Now this is exaggerated a little bit. This is a very forward slanting plunge line as opposed to a right angle plunge line, which a lot of people like on their knives like that. You can grind this back after forging to a right angle. And again, this is a little exaggerated. It'd probably be more like that. Is how I forge them. But here's the advantage to this as far as getting rid of this big radius. We've just drawn out the heel. Maybe we've done a little bit of hammering here. The bar, as far as the handle goes, is its original width. I don't like this angle here. I don't like that. So when we forge the handle up, we bring it up here. Look what we're left with here. We can grind all of this way to right there where it intersects the plunge line and come down here. And look how we've adjusted that radius. So that's why I say that's one of the, grind or forge, by the way. You don't have to grind it that way. You can forge it that way. You can hammer it that way. In fact, that's what you see in the video. But that's one of the advantages. Then you just come back in here and you grind this to whatever angle you want, If you want it squared up, 90 degrees with the spine, that's fine.
As forged, it doesn't look too bad, but when we go to clean it up on the grinder, you'll see why I'm looking for a new and better approach. I'm worried about this little area right here. And now that we've profiled the blade, you can see what's happening. Yeah, so that radius caught us. This area of scale has to be addressed, so I'll have to grind the entire blade back a few millimeters to get rid of that scale and decrease our radius to where it should have been. Not a huge bummer, but some blade width has been sacrificed. So here we go with technique number 2. This starts out much the same way as technique number 1 by drawing out our heel in standard fashion. This time we're going to use cross peening to spread the steel in beneficial directions. Check it out. By peening certain areas, like here and here, and then hammering them flat, we can move more steel into our heel, allowing us to tighten the radius there. I use this technique in the JFAC 11 knife, so let's watch that forging again now. We'll start out with our routine way of drawing out the heel, and then we'll move on to some peening. Here we go with the peening and spreading. And now we're going to start to bring some material down by peening parallel to the edge, sort of around the plunge line, and see if we can get some material down into our heel that way. So this really looks like a pretty good result. This is as forged. But look carefully. Look at that divot. That might catch up with us when we try to grind. We might have some leftover scale. Method 3 was suggested by a viewer. In this method, the handle is hammered in first, which simultaneously isolates the blade. Then the bevel is hammered from the tip of the knife towards the heel, backwards from what I normally do. The theory is that this will push material from the tip towards the heel. So I think I know what will happen next. As we get to the heel, watch this. So I think if I continue to bevel the heel here, it will primarily push the heel backwards towards the handle area instead of outwards and away from our bar. So before I hammer in that portion of the bevel, I'm going to try to gather a little more material from up the blade here a little bit with some peening. Yeah, I mean, hot dog, this method's looking pretty sweet. And clay, at least, that's a pretty good result, right? Let's move on to 1/4 inch steel. Now again, I'm not hammering the blade flat. I'm curving the spine back towards its natural state. As we beveled, it began to arch back on us, so I have to straighten it out. And I'll come back in here and re-bevel this edge and push the material back out. But I have to get the spine straight first. So here we go. Here we go, trying to peen some material down from along the plunge line into the heel area. Now I still got a little nub in there. That radius is not good. Let's go over to the vise and see if we can hammer that out a little bit, maybe get a little more material in the heel and peen that down. Well, those were our 3 techniques. Which one do you guys think worked the best? I'm going to go with the last one, number 3. I think it worked pretty well. Here's result number 1 with some grinding. It looks pretty good. I'm not unhappy with it. Result 2, I think this squared up the heel the best, but man, at what cost, that divot. So here's number 2 after some full flat rough grinding. After I rough grind the Ricassos, I'll be able to grind out that divot. But man, it's going to be by the skin of my teeth. That was hair raising. That was not fun. And here's number 3. We even got some wiggle room there. I've got some extra material to work with. That turned out really nice. So of these 3 techniques, I think I'm going to play with this one a little more. What do you guys think? What are you doing with your heels these days? Let me know below and have a good one.